Welcome everybody to what's become my favorite part of Walker Days, which is our conversation with the legends. I've been doing this for a couple of years now. We've had some really good folks up here, really good hunters. This year's going to be just a touch different. We generally have two legends up here with us, but this year we've only got one. We got Mr. Terry Vance out of Kentucky. Steve Smith out of the Danville, Virginia area was supposed to be with us, but unfortunately he fell ill towards the end of this week and is not able to make it. So hopefully somewhere in the future we'll be able to have Steve. But we're excited to have Terry here. And over the past few years we've had breeders, we've had handlers, and we've had hunters and trainers. And I can honestly say that from knowing Terry, he's done it all. He's done all those things. So I think he's going to be able to give us a lot more insight on all those topics. And we're going to touch on all those topics if we can, Terry. And with you just being one up here, it may be that it's shorter, but I also know you like to talk as much as I do, so it could be longer than what we've done in the recent years.
That's right. We're going to try to entertain them today.
That sounds good. So, Terry, with that, and at the end we'll have the crowd, if you guys have anything that I didn't touch on and you want to ask some questions. Oakley, if you have any questions for him, you just raise your hand, okay? All right. Terry, introduce yourself. Tell us where you're from and how long you've been into coon hunting.
Well, I'm from Corinth, Kentucky. I started coon hunting when I was 16 years old. My dad was always had hounds. He was a fox hunter, bird hunter. I had beagles before then. And but anyway, I had a high school friend that coon hunted, had an old red bone called Gomer. And so he started me coon hunting, and we hunted probably about 3 months before we ever seen a coon up a tree. But old Gomer could tree one.
It sounds like it.
Yeah. And but all them guys that I hunted with back then, I don't know any of them that still has dogs or coon hunting. So I've stayed with it ever since.
So you started when you're 16. How old are you now?
I'm 61. Be 62 in October.
Well, I won't ask you to do any math because we were trying to do some math yesterday and we couldn't come up with it. But that's a lot of years, ain't it?
Yeah, that's been a long time. I've only had a few breaks in that time period. Back when I was a younger man, used to get a girlfriend once in a while, and I always quit coon hunting when I got that girlfriend. But
that'll put a dampener on it, won't it?
But when I started dating my wife, and it ended up being my wife, I told her, I said, I want to tell you, I ain't going to tell you how many girlfriends I had before you, but I said I've always quit coon hunting for every one of them. But just letting you know right now, I'm not going to quit coon hunting. So
that's how you knew she was the one, right?
Yeah, that's right. So it worked out pretty good.
All right. So what about how'd you get into the Walker breed?
Well, first dogs I had was grade dogs that had black and tan and crossed up with something. An old dog come into a boy's house, a buddy of mine, and she had pups. And some of them looked like black and tans, white chest. I got 2 of them, started with them, and then I ended up getting a rester dog. They said you had to have a rester dog to have a good one, so that's where I started at. And
what was your first one?
Well, I named him Vance's Ramblin' Joe. He was supposed to have 3 or 4 world champions in his background, but back then you couldn't depend on papers too much, so I'm not sure. And the guy he come from, it might have been true and might not, But I hunted that dog, and like I say, they was 3-hour hunts back then. I hunted him in 5 hunts that one year and placed him in them, and 4 out of the 5 I hunted the last hour by myself, because somebody made minus out or something. But I bought an old female off of a guy, and he was supposed to be a good coon dog. And I was hunting her and hunting that young dog one night. Well, she was running the track, and that young dog come back. Well, I got after him, sent him back in there. He come back again. I got after him, sent him back in there again. I called him a daylight. Come find out they was running the fox. So the dogs were smarter than me back then.
Well, that's a pretty good segue into how have you seen coon hunting and competition hunting change since then?
Well, one thing, you don't have to hunt so long. and most of them shorter hunts. And then dogs have changed so much because used to be they'd all stay together. When I first started hunting, you had to walk hunt. Now you turn them loose, they go in all different directions, and most of the time you're driving around finding dogs somewhere, with the tracking collars, GPSs and stuff has really made a big difference, and most of the time more things are more action packed, I think, now too. So.
Well, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but what's your preference? I mean, did you like it better back then, or do you like it better now?
When I was in my 20s, the 3-hour hunts didn't mind, but when I'm now 60, I don't care to hunt an hour.
So you started competition. About how old were you when you started competition?
I was in my 20s. I mean, some of you guys might know when they quit the 3-hour hunts, but I think that year I hunted them, that was the last year they had the 3-hour hunts. But that's had to be 40-some years ago.
Right. And I said at the beginning that, we've had breeders, we've had handlers and hunters. Seems like you've done it all. Tell us about your breeding program, and when did you start that?
Okay. Well, I ended up getting this dog, these line of dogs that I've got started come from Ken Maynard from Pikeville, Kentucky. And I'm sure some of you heard of Burning Fork Jewel and Burning Fork Screaming Casey, and that's what he was out of. And back in, Ken sold them pups 6 weeks old for $300 a piece. That was pretty good pup money back in. And I just got that dog, met a boy, and he gave me half interest of him for me to hunt him, and I kept him. And I was hunting with a guy that had a good dog, and I hunted with him for 3 or 4 nights, and I asked him what did he think about him, and he said, well, I wouldn't feed him for him. So that just made me hunt him that much harder. Back then, I could hunt 4 to 5, 6 nights a week. I hunted that dog completely year by himself, and made an extremely good coon dog. I never did finish him the night champion, but back in, you'd go to a hunt, and there might be 20, 30 dogs, but I had 9 seconds on that dog and never did finish him. His name was Battlewood Cash, and that's what that boy had him named. I got him from, and that's how I got Battlewood Kennels. I asked him if I could use that name. I just like that.
So was that the absolute start of your line?
Yeah, that was the start of my line.
So what did you see? What did you see in those dogs that you liked?
Well, that dog there, the first thing, he was 14 months old when I got him. Boyd hunted him twice. The first thing, I took him to Indiana and hunted with the guy, and I lost him for a week up there, and ended up getting him back. We went squirrel hunting that day. The first thing he ever treed was a yellow cat. The first thing he treed at nighttime was a groundhog, and we shuck that groundhog out to him, and they both fought so long and got so hot that they just laid down beside each other and quit. And that's the only off game he ever treed. He never would tree a possum. If a dog treed a possum, if he treed, you better look up that tree because it's going to be a coon. And he did that twice while I was hunting.
Well, what do you think some of these dog trainers nowadays would think about shaking a groundhog out to a dog?
I don't know. Back in, we didn't care what it was as long as they treated it.
So we were talking, and one of my I guess favorite stories is it's a feel-good story, is how you came to own and have Joe Brown.
Right.
And I've hunted with a lot of your dogs over the years, and what did you have? Sam Brown and Bill Brown, and I don't know what all you had, and you had a little dog called Pounder that we'll talk about in just a minute. But right. Joe Brown, would you say he was one of the early dogs in your line, right?
Yeah. Well, he was actually 5th generation.
Okay.
Yeah. The Cash dog was first. I kept like 3 females after the Cash dog, and then I ended up getting to Joe.
Okay. So take us down how you got to Joe, and I want you to tell the folks the story of Joe.
Okay. Well, I had a female there, and I took her and bred her to Rat Attack, and there was a guy that lived up to home. He was an older gentleman, and his name was Joseph Ray Brown. And when everybody talked to him or called him, they always said his whole name, Joe. He'd call him Joe Brown. Well, anyway, him and his son had bought 2 pups off of me out of this female I had in Rat Attack. And he said, I'd like to have something to train my pups with. Well, I had probably 30 dogs back then. And I said, well, just take their mother. And he lived on a dead-end road. I said, just turn her loose. She'll get them going. So he did. And she got them started for him. And I said, just keep her over there. When she comes season, we'll breed her. And so anyway, she come in. He was all worried about what we're going to breed her to, you know. And he never was a competition hunter. He was just a pleasure hunter. And so anyway, that's when Rock River Gap, that Alan Snegger had just won the UKC World Hunt. And Alan happened to be down to Dry Ridge there close to me. He was hunting with Tony Martin. And Beth was judging a AKC show in Lexington. And I happened to run into him, and I said, well, got this female. I said, I'd breed her, but it's going to be a week before she's ready to breed. And he said, well, just meet me tomorrow. I'll take her home, breed her. Be back down here in 2 or 3 weeks. I'll bring her back. So that's what we did. Well, old Joe Brown, he wanted a full-page ad out of one of my coon hunting books. And I want to tell you, I probably got 30 years of prescriptions of them books, still got them, and maybe only 2 or 3 months missing out all of them. But anyway, gave him a full-page ad of Gap. He was going around just tickled to death, you know, and showing everybody he's going to get some pups out of this world champion. Well, the pups was due in January that year, and Joe and his wife was headed out to the store, and we had a snow on the ground, and he slid off the road there and hit a fence post. Wasn't a wreck, wasn't enough to kill him, but he had a heart attack and died. Well, he was neighbors to my mom and dad there. And my dad took the female up there and let her have her pups. And Joe's wife was named Barb, and I told her, I said, Barb, I said, me and Joe had a deal on these pups with his partners. I said, when I sell them, I'll bring you half the money. And she said, no, you don't have to do that. I said, just give my son one. His name was Dwayne Brown, and he actually lives in the old home place right now. But he said, just give him one, and that'll be good enough. And I said, no, I'll give him one, I'll keep one, and give you half the money. So we ended up selling them, and the first guy that come to want a pup wanted this female. Well, I was kind of on the females, and I done had her picked out to keep. And I said, you can't have her, that's one I'm gonna keep. And my dad was there, and he says, you let that man have that female, you keep this male pup right here. He picked Joe out, and I said, well, Dad, I'm going to keep him. I'm going to name him after Joe. And that's how I got to Joe Brown. But Joe Brown, he started when he was 10 months old. I come to the Trend Walker pup hunt they had. And there was a guy named Leroy Roeder, had a litter mate to him, and he was already running Trend. And I come up there and went pleasure hunting with him, and that's when my pup started too. And the next year I come back to that pup hunt. Joe was 20 months old, and he won the pup hunt.
And you told me something that a lot of us know. If you're going to be in this game, you got to have breaks, right?
Right.
You got to have breaks. I mean, not always the best dog wins, but you said you got a lot of good breaks with Joe, right?
Yeah, Joe just seemed like when a hunt, whatever I needed, he could do. And if he needed a strike, you know, he could trail a trail up and tree a coon, or he could just go in there and fall tree. And I would score coons out of den trees. I mean, I squalled coons out of dens, or you walk in big leafy tree, you know, you think you ain't gonna find a coon to be sitting in the wide open. And but whenever I'd win with Joe, I'd always call Joe's wife, Barb, and let her know. And I believe it was 2007, the one the Hunt Dog of the Year was Joe, running them Walker sectionals. Of course, they win them plaques with the clocks on them. And one of them I won that year, I gave to her, and she still got it. So
that's one of my all-time favorite stories since you've told me that. And I asked you, I said, what do you attribute all them good breaks to? And you said, I think it's because I did right by Barb and named him Joe. And so I really appreciated that. And I know anybody who's heard that certainly appreciate it as much as I do. We'll talk a little bit more about what all you won with Joe, but what did you like about that line of dogs that you just kept breeding for those genetics?
Well, from the very first one I had, the dog he was kind of dog you could just talk to, and you didn't have to lead him. And all of them that I've hunted all down through the years, I train them where you don't have to lead them. You can call them in. Back in, it didn't have the shock collars and all that stuff to help you train that. And but most of them you didn't have to do that. And but these dogs, as long as if they could hear you, you could call them in. It didn't matter if they was treed, across the river or whatever, they'd come back. This seemed like they had some brains.
Right.
You know, and they was always, most of the time, all down through the line was easy starters. I mean, all you had to do is just take them hunting. And once you showed them a coon, you could just start hunting them by themselves, you know.
Now, when I guess when I got into a lot of the AKC hunts, you used to do a lot of the AKC hunts with us, and I hunted with a little dog that you had a couple times, and you called him Pounder. Now, was he out of Joe?
Yeah, he was directly out of Joe and was out of a rat attack female, which was out of a double Spring Creek Rock female. So it's had some good old bloodlines in her there. And
Pounder weighed what, about 40 pounds?
Yeah.
Soaking wet?
Yeah, but he didn't get named Pounder for his size, I don't think. I think it was the way he treed, because he was really a hard tree dog.
Right. And tell us a little bit about him. You did quite a bit of winning with it. You probably won more with Pounder than you did any dog, right? Or would it have been Joe?
Well, yeah, probably Pounder, but I hunted Pounder more in the hunts too. I mean, both of them finished out the dual grand. Joe Brown, as far as I know, was the first dual grand out of Rock River Gap. I can't remember the guy's name, but there was a guy from Tennessee that had a female, and we was close. He ended up finishing his dual grand about 2 weeks after mine, and but we talked back and forth a few times. And then Pounder, actually with Pounder, of course I had his litter there, and I'd raised that cross several times with Joe and that rat attack female. And a buddy of mine had one out of the litter before Pounder, and he was 7 months old and just unbelievable. And he shot a coon out to him one night, and it bit him in his tongue somehow. And the next day that pup died. And I told him, I said, well, come on up here. And I said, I got this little pup, and it's the next litter, same cross. I said, I'll just give you him. And he took him, and he hunted him a little bit, and he called me. He said, I think I'm going to bring that pup back. He said, he's just too little. And I said, well, whatever you want to do. So he brought him back. I gave him another one. He had him about a week, and he brought him back because he said he makes my dog hunt too deep. But anyway, on Pounder, I had him there for a while. Well, me and this guy that hunted, his name was Manuel Crace, me and him had done a pup deal. And he wanted a female pup. Well, I didn't have none. They had all males. And I said, just take this little pup. And that was Pounder. I said, just take him and get our deal straight, you know. So he took him. And so anyway, he had him for a little bit. And he had a coon down at his house, and he got out of the pen. Well, that pup got trended. So he told this guy, Vernon Mullins, that you need to take this dog. And so Vernon took him, hunted him a little bit. He called me up and said, you need to get this pup back. And so I got him back. Well, anyway, the guy that I originally gave him to, Gail Craddock, he come up there and got him. He hunted him about 6 months, and he said, better come down and look at this dog. And so we turned loose in a cornfield, and I had a pretty good female at that time. And Pounder was probably running about 100 feet or so in front of her and come out the side of that corn tree. And this unbelievable tree dog. And he said, I named him Pounder because of the way he trees there. And said, if you want to buy this pup back, you can buy him. So and then Manuel, I had to give him $25 to take him because they didn't pay him up. So I gave him away, paid $25 to give him away, and then paid $2,500 to buy him back.
That's just good business,
right? But I'd say the first 4 or 5 hunts I hunted that dog, I sold a pup off of my dogs just because of the way he treated, you know.
Yeah.
And,
well, that's what I was going to say. I'd say you got at least that much times 10 of enjoyment out of him, didn't you?
Yeah.
Carrying him around on all them hunts.
Yeah.
And one of your dogs out of your line, I don't know if you owned him or not at the time, Terry, but you won the AKC World one year, right?
Yeah, that was the Bill Brown dog, and he just died here about 2 months ago. He was 12 years old, but he was out of a Joe and a. They said she was a double flag bred female, but went back to some pulpwood breeding and stuff, and I just let people hunt that dog. I probably 4 or 5 people had hunted him. Neighbor boy down the road said, "Hey, you got a dog I can train some pups with?" And I said, "Yeah, just take Bill." I said, I haven't hunted him once in about a year, but I said he'd tree a coon. He called me the next night. He said, "How long been since you hunted that dog?" I said, "I've hunted him once in the last year." He said, "Well, he treated 3 singles just like it wasn't nothing, you know." Well, he hunted that dog for 2 months, missed 4 or 5 nights, he said, and brought him back about 2 weeks before the AKC World. I had 3 dogs qualified for that. I had him and a dog called Mac and Pounder. So I had a boy hunt Pounder, man hunted Mac. He wasn't even 2 years old yet. I hunted Bill, and I thought they had the better dogs been hunted, you know, but ended up winning that with Bill, and that was the second. Joe Brown reproduced 2 world champions. Hannes Creek, Phil and Frisky, she won the ACHA and UKC World Hunt, and then Bill won the AKC World Hunt. So he reproduced 2 world champions. So. Right.
And I hunted with Frisky. She was a super nice female. Mm-hmm. What are you hunting now? Are you still hunting the same line?
Yeah, I'm on I say the 8th generation of them. So if you go back, that old Cash dog was 8th generation back. I've got a 5-year-old. She turned 5-year-old last month, female. And she's out of a dog that was out of Pounder, out of the Mac dog. And then I've got a 3-year-old dog. It's out of Mac's littermate brother, Rocky. And so they're both 8th generation dogs. Molly, she had just turned 2, and I couldn't hunt her into pup hunt at Walker Days, so I hunted her in Walker Days. And on a Saturday night, she won the cast second in the registered, and went out in the semifinals, I guess you call it, got in the final 3, and ended up 3rd. Her just turning 2 years old, so that was a.
And are you hunting her tonight?
Yeah, I hunted her last night and got beat, but you do that when you hunt very much.
You do that a lot, don't you?
Yeah.
A lot more than you win.
Yeah.
Terry, I don't know if you remember this or not, but Terry and Pounder gave me one of my first lessons in competition hunting one night. I was hunting Jewel, and we were at an AKC hunt, so AKC World, or I can't remember what we were at, but I got up on these guys' first half of the hunt, probably 2 coons, and Jewel came around the field edge there, and she started pecking around on a tree, and I was all gas, no brakes at the time, and I was thinking, boy, I'm gonna put them 3 coons down now, they'll withdraw. And I treed her, and she wasn't right, and she moved, and I got minused. And Terry and Pounder came back and treated a couple coons, and they beat me. And Terry came up to me after the hunt, and he put his hand on my shoulder, and he said, "Little buddy, I don't think I would have treated her back there." And I said, "Yeah, no kidding, Terry. Thanks. Thanks for that life lesson there, bud." But y'all went on and placed really high that year. And now every time I think twice about treeing a dog, I think about you and Pounder that night. Terry, I always like to get folks up here, the legends, to tell us one of their favorite coon hunting stories. And it can be something from a competition hunt. It can be, you know, Charlie Butler had us in stitches a couple of years telling us a tale. So what's your favorite coon hunting story?
Well, when you hunt as long as I have, you have several. I don't know which one's the funnest one. But this one thing on the legend thing, I don't think 61 you can be a legend. You have to be dead to be a legend. So I told him yesterday, I'm probably the youngest one that's ever done this yet. But
I'd say you're right.
Yeah.
I'd say so.
Yeah. But I'll tell the story about taking my wife hunting. We was dating, and I wanted to introduce her to coon hunting because I'd done told her I wasn't going to quit. And so we went right behind her house. It was a full moon lit night. She didn't have no light. I was walking about 100 feet ahead of her all the way. Got in there to the dog's tree. I done had them tied up, done shined the tree. She finally made it in there, and that's the way you ready to go back. So we walked her the same way back. Got back to the house, and I said, well, how you like it? She said, it's all right. I said, you don't like it, do you? She said, I don't want to do it 5 or 6 nights a week. So, but
but she stayed by you though, right?
Yeah, she stayed by me. She also told me, because I told her I wouldn't quit hunting, and I said, if we get married, I said, the only way I'll quit, but financially or something, and I have to quit, I'll quit. And so anyway, one year here, a few years back, she was doing their taxes, and she said, you know how much you spent on dog papers and stuff this year? And I said, no, I don't. A little over $7,000. That's getting close to quitting time, but she didn't make me quit. So,
all right,
yeah,
good. Well, I know you have to thank her. But is there anybody else? We all have people that we look up to that maybe helped us along the way. Is there anybody you need to thank for the career that you've had in coon hunting?
Yeah. Well, first off, you gotta thank the guys that started the Walker dogs of hunting. None of my dogs would be here if it wasn't for the guys in the past that done them dogs. And so they the ones that get all the credit for us being able to hunt now. And I can't sit here and name them all, but sure I'll miss somebody. But you all know a lot of the guys that started the Walker breed, and that's one thing about this Walker Days. When I first started coming this Walker Days, and we had the Lee Crawford hunt, I got to meet Lee, and some of the old other guys. John Monroe's always been here, and all them guys is the ones that are getting the credit for our dogs we have now. Right. I believe in the Lord. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Him. Wouldn't be able to do none of this. And so we got to thank the Lord first for everything we have. My family's always been supportive. If any of you that's coon hunted very long, you know that a lot of times your family is the one doing the sacrifice. And I've left my wife and kids home with many a weekend to go to a hunt or something. And just thank Him. I've got 2 girls, twin girls, 25, boy that's 30, and my son, I coon hunted him too young, had to carry him back to the truck, and that was the end of that for him. He'd hunt the youth hunt every year. And girls, they hunted with me quite a bit and hunted a lot of the youth hunts and stuff. But, your family's a big part that allows you to be able to do this too. So.
Right. With that, I'd like to ask anybody from the crowd if there's any questions or thoughts you might have for Terry. Call them out and we'll announce it on the radio here. Well, Terry, that must mean we did a pretty good job, buddy.
Yeah, well, I ain't done
no
yet.
Question. Oh, well, you go right ahead. You say whatever you need to say.
Yeah. Well, I just think this Walker Days hunt, I always was my vacation, and a lot of you people, that's the only time I get to see you, and just thankful for all the friends I made over the years. I know some people that you beat that they just can't be friends with you, but I made a bunch of them, and like I say, it's just a special time for me to be able to come to this Walker Days and see people that's the only time you see them, and it's been a good run for me. I really like supporting the youth and the youth hunts. I helped our state youth hunt for 20-some years, and and I've got there's a young man up here now. He's actually just turned 15 today. A couple years ago, he wanted to get into coon hunting, and he took my little female. We went to a hunt on Friday night before the youth hunt. And I said, you just go with me and just kind of watch, see how things go. Well, I got beat. And I told him, I said, after we got done, I said, now tonight I showed you how to get beat. I said, you show me how to win tomorrow night. And they come to that youth hunt the next night and won it. And like I say, he's still hunting. And so I really enjoyed taking young kids hunting. Most of my hunting partners has always been older than me. And I've lost some good ones. They passed on, but thankful for all the things they taught me, how to hunt and stuff, and just really enjoy hunting with the youth. And if we don't keep them youth a hunting, then one of these days we all going to be gone, and the coon hunting's going to be gone. I think our state association, Kentucky Houndsmen, they've done a lot for our hunting rights, and if you have an association for your state, you need to support them, because there's a lot of going out trying to stop us from hunting and stuff. So, and like I say, I'm just thankful for the dogs I've had in the past. This job I've got, I work on. May they be there 38 years, and I can't hardly hunt during the week. Only time I can hunt during the week if I'm not working the next day. So all my dogs has been, for 30 years, has been weekend warriors, I call them, And now I'm so tired when I come in on Friday, most of the time I miss Fridays. So, but this has been great. When Alan contacted me after I'd be interested in it, this is an honor, and I'm just thankful for it.
Well, Terry, you are a legend in anybody's book. You may be one of the youngest ones we've had, but you are a legend with what you've done for our sport and for our youth, and the accomplishments that you've had. So we sincerely appreciate you being here. And with that will conclude our 2024 conversation with the legend Terry Vance. Thank y'all.
Thank you. Terry.
Clayton Stark here, getting ready to take the dogs to the woods tonight using the Dogter Pathfinder 2 GPS tracking system.
Ow!